Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Integrity Project. I'm your host, Roy Coachillo, and I'm here with a special guest today, Robert Gillelan, my good friend from Man on Fire. We've come through many immersions together.
We have.
And your story, to be honest with you, really touched me as a man, and the profound growth that you had over the past couple of years that we got to know each other. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but I just want to give you a proper introduction.
Thank you.
So people get to know who you really are.
Thank you, Roy. I appreciate
You're welcome.
I always love being a host, be it on your podcast or around your dinner table.
I am a good cook.
That's true.
Robert is a father, grandfather, widower, and a new life partner. Professionally, he's an IT project manager, but his life's deepest work was forged through profound personal loss. When Robert's daughter was just 2 years old, his wife, Pascale, was diagnosed with breast cancer and given 6 to 12 months to live. What followed was a 12-year journey through hospitals, clinical trials, chemotherapy, surgery, radiation, remission, and hope, only to face cancer again, this time pancreatic. Robert walked beside his wife every step of the way. Through that experience, he was transformed. Today, Robert is a cancer crisis leadership coach for men, helping husbands and partners lead their families through cancer with grip and growth, offering the guidance he once needed but couldn't find.
Thank you. That's a really good summary of who I am and where I'm at.
Thank you, Robert. And your story touched me because, even as a young teenage boy, you went through trauma, but yet you showed up as a loving father and husband. And then the profound loss of Pascale, who's, from what I gathered from your stories, was like your best friend and your soulmate.
Absolutely. We were together almost 30 years, and of which first half of it we just followed our desires, did our hopes, our dreams, and then it was like, okay, time to start a family, and started a family, and then 2 years into it was just the she had this weird. We had just moved, and I'm making dinner, calling her, she's not coming, and she came around the corner into the dining room. She grabbed onto the wall for support, almost collapsed. The started saying, like, I can't really feel one side of my body. We called the telehealth here in Ontario. They had paramedics there like that. And then it was just, I remember seeing my life kind of flash before me when they held up her arms, hold them out, and one arm just like drifted off down to the bottom. And that's how the whole thing started. It was her body giving her a signal that there was a problem. And about 2 weeks later, she discovered a lump in her breast. And from then it was just, here we go. And biopsies, clinical trials, all kinds of, and then like surgery, chemotherapy, more doctors, and three and a half, 4 years of that, to come out the other end of being, said, you know what, you're in remission. And that lasted for 3 years until she started getting an ulcer that wouldn't go away. And after about a month and a half of trying to discern that one, they went in for a CAT scan, and it was like, oh, you've got a growth in your pancreas. They gave her 6 months. She fought for 3.5 years against this. They gave her absolutely zero chance of survival. And she inspired people along the way. She was an inspiration to me. Was it a grind? Absolutely. It was the toughest thing I have ever done, of which I wish on no one. But it was a really heartfelt experience, and I was pleased that there was a piece that when, it was sort of in her last days of that, she'd reached over and she was just like, you've always been my best friend, and that, you've been here for me this entire time. Her family afterwards, I thought, it's like, I'm kind of, what do I do here? Like, my connection's kind of severed. And their comment was like, Robert, you are family. Like, you've done more for Pascale than anyone ever expected you to. And that was probably one of the most gratifying moments that I've had as sort of a, having been there, stuck it out, and supported her all the way through it, to just be knowing that regardless what happens, I'm still a part of the LeBlanc family.
And are you guys still close with Pascale's family?
Yeah, we were just down there right over Thanksgiving. We had Thanksgiving together, and it's they've been coming up there seeing my daughter and my new granddaughter, and it's just it's a beautiful thing. It's kind of like I've got a third family now that I'm in a new relationship, and there's no animosity or jealousy between any of them. It's a beautiful thing.
So what would you say was like the most difficult part of transitioning? I know that you and Pascale have a very deep relationship, and it took you quite a while to find love again, if you want to call it that way.
Oh yeah.
And I'm just saying this because a lot of men, I find that, especially when they become widowers, tend to get in a relationship super fast and just want somebody else to share their life with. What kind of advice do you have with somebody who's gone through the same thing as you did, where they've lost their spouse to, cancer, and want to rush into a relationship to fill their time or fill the void?
It's a situational thing. When Pascale died, my daughter Vianne was 13 years old. And all of a sudden I'm like, I'd been carrying a lot of the child care duties through the entire sickness. But when all of a sudden I've got a 13-year-old, impressionable, lost her mom, she's having troubles being able to just navigate life with a lot of the issues, and then COVID hits, and all the other isolation that went with that. I did not want to have essentially a parade of women coming through the house at that stage. There was a couple relationships that I had that she kind of invested in those women, and then the relationship dissolved, and she felt like she was being abandoned again. So for me, I made a decision of that, I'm waiting until she's like a little bit older before I really start getting serious again. And then I did get serious, and I went through a couple of relationships, and I ended up swearing off the dating apps because I was like, all I seemed to find is women that, this was one of the lines that blew my mind. One of the women that I was out with, she said, you know what? I would prefer a divorced and bitter man over a man who's a widower who still is in love with his wife. And I was like, okay, time's up on this relationship. So, it's a tough thing. It's difficult for everybody. Some guys rush back into a relationship, and I understand that. There's an element of physical and emotional intimacy that can be missing from, it goes missing. All of a sudden, it's like you've got no one. And some of that can be, like, certainly I went through a lot of that as Pascale was sick. There was times when, chemo, she'd go in, she'd get the chemo done on, say, a Monday, and it was like the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, she's absolutely bedridden and not feeling well. Thursday, she starts feeling better. Friday's even better than that. Saturday, Sunday, she's back to normal. Life is all good. And then Monday, we're right back into the same thing all over again. And sex is really hard within, like, just people that are going through cancer, exhaustion. Chemotherapy also leaches poison all the way through the body. I don't know how PG this is, but there's
it's not that PG. And like, what, honestly, we're just here to expose the truth. You go as deep as you like here. It's a safe place. And people, the problem is a lot of people don't want to talk about the sexual part because they think it's offensive, but it's just a natural part of a relationship. And intimacy.
And there was a big miss. And Pascale felt really bad that and she voiced this to me, that I want more intimacy. I want more intimacy with you. And I can't. And it was a combination of things that happened. Number one, we did unprotected sex when she had chemo, and I ended up with what's called chemo dick, which is where...
What is that exactly?
That is basically where the chemotherapy chemicals end up burning your skin from, the mucous membranes.
Oh boy.
And so, it's definitely... To any other man out there that, their wife is doing chemotherapy, please wear a condom. Save yourself some pain that I endured.
We can laugh at it now, but it's not really a funny situation.
It wasn't funny at the time. And the other thing that comes out of that, seeing as we're in this thing. So as a result of, the breast cancer, they discovered that she had the BRCA1 genetic variant, which makes women significantly more prone to breast, brain, bone, and pancreatic cancer. And so she decided that, it was get a double mastectomy. She got an oophorectomy and a hysterectomy. And when they did the hysterectomy, we were sitting with the doctor, and he was like, and I was like, so how does this work? And explain it. He said, oh, don't worry, we'll sew her up. She'll be tight like a virgin again. You're going to love it. And I was like, I'm not sure that that's exactly the case. They sewed her up so tight that we were unable to have sex without her being in serious pain. And, it's one of those of, we talked to the doctor, he was like, oh, we can go back and redo it again. And Pascale was like, I'm not going under the knife again. No fucking way. She'd had cesarean section, double mastectomy, the hysterectomy, the oophorectomy. It was like, no more.
I guess at some point or another, just enough's enough.
Yeah, enough's enough. And, so it changed us being intimate, a lot more of like.
But did you have intimacy in different ways?
Absolutely.
Right? There's not, because intimacy isn't necessarily all about physical sex.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. So there's touching and looking each other's eyes, holding each other and being there for each other and having more of a soulful type of intimacy where, you can express your love freely.
Yeah.
And I know as men, we always figure we equal intimacy to sex, but that's not necessarily the truth.
It's one of the forms of intimacy.
Of course.
But there's the emotional side as well.
Yeah.
And, it was just one of those pieces where I needed to be able to take, that sort of primal urge that I've got that and divert that energy into something else. And, and it wasn't going to be into other women. It was, I had that for better, for worse, for sickness and health, all those things. Like, I hold those things dear. And that was not just a part of the cards. Some guys do. I know that some of the people that I talked to went through it, and they're like, it's easy. I'm like, no, it's just not me. So,
No, and listen, we talked about this earlier today. We were discussing like the percentage of men who abandon their wives during cancer, and you had a number there.
It's about there's a study. It's a little disputed right now, but the roughly 20% of men in a serious committed relationship will abandon the wife and the family and go for a divorce if the wife takes sick. Conversely, it's about 2.9% of women. There is some debate over that one, but I just simply know out of the people that I've met anecdotally and what I went through of that there are guys that they all of a sudden it's like, the woman's in for chemotherapy and she's trying to figure out how it is that she's going to be now a single mother taking care of kids as she's healing herself with cancer at the same time, which blew my fucking mind. I was just like, I am not able to put myself into the same headspace to think that, I can just flush my relationship because I didn't sign up for this. And that was what one of the guys said. He was like, I didn't sign up for this. And I was like, everyone's like, dude, what would have happened if it was you? Like, and she abandoned you because of the thing. It's like, but she's built to care for. I'm not built. And I was like, neither was I. But it's a learned thing, and you can learn anything.
Well, I look at my dad, who's taking care of my mom, who they've been married almost 60 years, right? Yeah. And he's taking care of her, and she's got vascular dementia. Her mobility is getting less and less every day because she doesn't like.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you. And we went to go see some long-term care facilities, and my dad's asking like, how do I spend time with your mom while she's here? And I'm like, Dad, just like you're here all day with her, and then you can go home at night, get a good night's rest, and come back next day energized. You can spend all the time you want. You want to take her home for a weekend, you can do that. Like, but he didn't comprehend it because he was like, if I'm not with her, like I have nothing. And it's such an incredible story. And when it comes to having such love for somebody that you're willing to sacrifice yourself to make sure they're taken care of in their most vulnerable time, because it's not like Pascale chose to have breast cancer or chose to have pancreatic cancer. And, it truly shows who you are as a human being when you show up for somebody that you truly love and care about and put it all on the line for them. And you doing that for her is such an honor because, sometimes I wonder of my ability to do that. But I know that if I have a deep enough love for somebody that I would stand by their side and do everything I could for them. And I just want to honor you for that because it takes a man with a big heart and somebody who's very centered in who he is as a man to do that. Because a lot of people look at their self-worth as what they have. Yes. And if everything's perfect, then they don't want to have it. After Pascale passed, what did grief teach you about who you are?
I was a mess. Like, quite truthfully, I was an absolute mess. Coming out of the end of that, I needed to find myself again. And for a period of time,
And what do you mean by find yourself again? Did you find you lost yourself?
taking
care of Pascale?
that could be kind of a way of putting it. I put my, like I was still doing my project management work and the other things, but it was, it was just, we need to bring in money. That's the way it goes, but no hobbies. My fitness sucked. I put on 50 pounds. Like, I'm 185 now. I was like 140 almost, when Pascale passed. I was drinking too much. I was smoking drugs. It was just, I carried around a lot of pain, a lot of anger. I was angry at God. I was angry at cancer. I just, there was a great big, like, fuck you to everything. And that was about the time where I ended up meeting David Mailer and Man on Fire. It was, I knew I was fucking up. My daughter was coming to pick me up at the bar, the little pub that we got in town. And that was like this stops, and this stops now. And then working through there, and I remember lying on my back, just as doing some of the work with David, and just screaming, like, fuck cancer, fuck this. I want my life back. I want my wife back. I want my life back. I want my life back. And that started the process of healing. But grief is like, it's this hole. Someone's gone. Like, even in the darkest moments with Pascale, and I remember towards the end, like, at times I'd tried to pull her close to me as we were sleeping or going to bed, and it'd hurt her bones for me to just even pull her close. And she was like, you can't do that with me anymore. And those are the kind of things that, like, when I said, like, I kind of got angry and lost, like, those were the things, like, all of those little pleasures of somebody that I loved were taken away one by one. And after she died, just finding back of, like, okay, what can I do to sort of make myself happy again, and the rest of it. And like I said, at that stage, I was like, I wasn't really ready for a relationship. I did talk with Kathleen at one stage about it, and she was like, "Oh, dude, like, you are a red flag. Like, you shouldn't be dating anybody right now." And and that was like maybe about 6 months after Pascale died, and she was absolutely right. Like, I think men really need time to grieve. They need time to be able to process what they've been through, and to just understand and live with that hole that still kind of remains there.
Do you find that men usually, when they tend to grieve, they just try to find distraction, and that's why they quickly jump into another relationship to distract them from the pain that they actually feel?
Relationships, gambling, prostitution, sex, drugs, alcohol. I think I said that already, but
gambling.
It's all, there are so many ways that people are able to try and avoid their pain by, just exploring one vice or another. And a lot of men rush back into a relationship, and then they find out a little later, it's like, oh God, like, what have I done? One of my dad's, the woman who was taking care of my dad when my dad was sick, her comment when she'd heard that one of these women wanted to move in with me, she was like, no, like, how long have you been going out? And it was like, about 5 months. She goes, wait until 6 months is out. 6 months has gone by. 6 months is when crazy shows up.
You can only hide crazy for so long, I guess. Your coaching philosophy centers on grip, grit, and growth. Yeah. Can you walk us through what each of those means in the middle of a real life crisis?
Thank you for that question. That's
You're welcome.
It kind of fits in with this whole, when you're going through that's almost like a phoenix thing. Like, you end up being burned up and rebirthed. But part of that is like, there's this whole thing of like, number one, get a grip. Like you're going to have a ton of things coming at you all at once. You're trying to manage your family, and take care of the kids and do some of the stuff. Sometimes you're going to be doing the grocery shopping on time of the other things. definitely if you can set it up to order things, that's a great stuff. But there's the finances. And for some of the people I work with that are down in the US, the issues that they've got dealing with the insurance companies and the others, just a whole new level of like, oh my God, how do I deal with this? So it's really taking an inventory is the grip part to it of where am I at? Where are the places that, I need help? And depending on the financial means of the person, what is it that you're able to peel off and what is it that you need to hold as the center? And the family is the thing to hold at the center the most as possible. The grit part is that, buckle up. This is not a short-term thing. I don't know if you've ever seen this, but the sailors of old used to have hold fast tattooed across their knuckles.
Right.
And it was one of those, and when I've seen a few people that have done it, and it reminds me of that whole thing of that, it's like, this is one of the times that you've really got to have the discipline and the integrity and stick to it. I know that we can get through this. I've got to be able to, just maintain focus as we go through. And the other bit is the growth. And that was one of the things I was missing as I was going through the cancer journey. Yeah, I grew some, but it wasn't as focused as it's been since. And it can be a real opportunity for you to grow as a man, to grow your integrity, to be able to, live your truth, to discover more of your meaning. There's so many beautiful things that can come.
Being a father of a young child and trying to protect them from the deterioration of Pascale, like how did you keep Vianne? I'm gonna say protected in one sense, but how did you deal with her? Because I mean, children are so intuitive and they can feel everyone's pain, and I think that'd be the hardest part for me is watch my children suffer along with my partner, my spouse.
Yeah, she had a really rough go of it. Between, the whole, she'd get home from school. I'm still at work. She's trying to take care of her mom. Mom's, down. She's just, and she actually ended up, to a certain extent, nursing her as time went along, which at her age, when she was originally like maybe 6, and then again when she was about 10, it's not really the role she should have. It was something that she wanted to do, and she did. She wanted to go to chemotherapy appointments with her, and she went, because when we sort of said no, it was more of a problem to, keep her away than it was for her to understand what was going on. The big thing was to be present for her, to make time for her. And I wish I'd known more about it at the time. I think I was good at it at the time, but I certainly could have been better, knowing what I know now.
Do you have just crying circles and days with them, just hang on and both of you just weep in each other's arms and just...
That happened sometimes. There were other times where it was just, she'd rage and then shut down. There were times I'd rage and then shut down. It's a tough thing to do, to raise a kid as you're going through all this.
What's the deepest truth you've discovered about yourself through this journey of yours?
What's the deepest truth? That's a really good question. It wasn't one I was anticipating from you.
Well, I did send it to you, by the way. You didn't read the whole. You didn't read the whole thing.
Yeah, it would have been kind of neat. No. So, what was my biggest truth? That's an interesting question. Sort of the glib off the top of my head was that I'm stronger than I thought I was. But deeper down. The truth that came out of it is that I've got a mission to help men that are going through the same thing. When Pascale was first sick, and I was like, what do I do? And the system doesn't give a whole lot of help to caregivers. There's a little bit that's out there, and it's picking up. But certainly when this all started, like at this stage, it's like, almost 20 years ago, it was like, there was nothing. There was one book, at the... there was one book at the bookstore that was like Breast Cancer Husband. That was it. And it was pretty much one guy's recount of what he'd been through. So a lot of it was just, okay, by gosh and by golly, how am I going to make this work? And so the truth that came out of this is that the writing that I did, I kept a blog and a journal the entire time that Pascale was sick, because communication to family and friends of what's going on is a massive undertaking, and you can't do it all by phone calls. So social media and, and a blog post was the way that I was able to communicate. And taking all that, I was able to start distilling it into a book that's sort of more the emotional side of what went on, and then a journal, which is literally, these are the things that you need to talk about with your doctor. Here's the appointments. Here's how you're reacting to the medicine and to food that you're eating. What are your emotions today? How are you feeling physically, emotionally, spiritually? All those particular things, so that when you do go into the doctor, that you're prepared for it. And then throughout of the coaching work that I ended up doing, through Man on Fire, that ended up, giving me the impetus to, okay, this is a valid and valuable piece. Every time I have this talk, people walk away going like, yeah, like there's nothing out there. You are like trailblazing in this. So.
And did you find that taking care of Pascale, you stopped taking care of yourself?
Absolutely. When Pascale got sick, I did not take care of myself as much as I needed to. There's, the part of me that would love the blame and shame stuff of just saying like, I was too busy and I'm working and I'm things. And then, but I know that I was making time to sometimes go out with the boys and drink myself stupid because I was trying to pain manage. I know that, there was just not eating the way I should. Like I said, I put on 50 pounds. Like I was, I should show you a picture of what my driver's license still has my picture from when I was doing that. And people say I look like an Italian thug.
Oh, nice.
So, I was debating about throwing that piece in, but I thought you'd get a laugh out of it.
So. Hey, listen, it's nice to laugh sometimes about these things, and we know they're very serious. And I can't imagine the amount of pain that you and your family must have felt when you're dealing with, knowing that there's no cure, there's no remission on this one, and we hear it more and more, and people are getting younger and younger. I have a colleague at work right now who is probably in her mid-30s who has breast cancer, and she's super scared, and it's not like for you, like for her husband, what can he do to help him, or vice versa? On that side. So I really honor you for stepping up and creating something about that, because it really it's needed out there, and it's more and more common. They say that 50% of people will have cancer.
It's very much that. Like Pascale was the first out of our circle of friends that that got sick with cancer, and she was 42, I believe, when 40. No, she was 40 when she was diagnosed. And she was one of the younger people that was diagnosed. But as time went on, we saw more and more. And certainly one of the things that's a little scary is the amount of pancreatic cancer. Pancreatic cancer is definitely on an upswing. Breast cancer has actually there's been so much invested in it that the morbidity rates of it have gone down. And the chances of survival are significantly better than they ever used to be. Not to say that it's a done deal and they found a cure. They haven't, but it's a better situation. Pancreatic, most time they don't find out about it until, it's already progressed to like a stage 3 or a stage 4. Usually, like I said, it showed up in Pascale as an ulcer. Some people it's a little bit of back pain. And those numbers are brutal, and it kills people fast. So most people don't tend to think that it's that big a deal, but it's just that they're not seeing the damage that's being done.
Yeah, it's like one of our vice presidents of Home Trust, Ed, he went to get an MRI because he had back pain, mm-hmm. and they did an MRI on him and discovered he had pancreatic cancer, and I think he lasted 5 months. Yeah,
it's typically 6 months is the max that they tend to. They certainly did that with us, and I think part of that was that Pascale did clinical trials and after every chemotherapy cocktail she tried failed, she went to immunotherapy, and then it got to a point where the cancer actually mutated into a point where it nullified the immunotherapy. And at that stage, they said, we can't do anything. And that was the beginning of July. And then she died August 27th. Like it was like literally 2 months later, she was gone. And she went from just looking, she looked fairly normal, and all that, to looking like she was 80 years old within 2 months. It was absolutely mind-bending to watch. It was a real mind fuck for me. all the way around to watch somebody that I know just wither away in front of my eyes.
Yeah.
We are 35 minutes in.
I got the last question. We're done.
There we go.
There you go. And I always close my podcast with this question. And what does integrity mean to you, especially when life strips away certain control and fairness?
That's a great question. What does integrity mean to me? At the bottom of the old thing is, at the bottom of the whole piece to it, and the foundation for me to integrity is keeping your word. You know, it's like if your word is your bond. It figures into the sort of the communication, you know, component of integrity as it moves forward. It also goes to, you know, staying the course, like being loyal. I had this much better thought out a few minutes ago. I don't know why I'm suddenly just blowing it.
You know what, Rob, just come from your heart, brother. I know that we all want to try to make this perfect. And you know what? There's no such thing as perfection. And I think that if you want, I can help you a little bit. The amount of integrity you showed to stick by your wife from the moment that somebody said she's got cancer to helping her go into remission, and then finding out that she has something even more serious, and you still hold her hand and held her close to your heart and did everything you could to the moment she passed. That to me, man, is integrity. That's your home. That's your heart.
Thank you.
And it was just an unbelievable story. And, you know, we spent a lot of time crying at Man on Fire, and that's part of my own integrity. But I got to say, dude, if you ever want a definition of integrity, I could put a picture of you right beside that, because you're just an incredible man with an incredible heart. And that's just a beautiful thing. And I just want to thank you for being here.
Thank you, Roy, for witnessing me.
And being in my life. I know we don't talk very often, but when we do, it's always deep and it's always a beautiful thing. And most importantly is, where can people find you that are looking for help?
People need to find me, would like to find me. You can reach me on Facebook and Instagram at Grip Grit Grow.
Grip Grit Grow.
Yeah, it's some people have said that's not good branding, Robert. It's a tongue twister.
It's a tongue twister for sure, but okay.
And it's and as well, there's a website, you know, www.gripgritgrow.com, and info at the same as the way to be able to contact me by email.
That's awesome. You keep up the great work, my brother.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
much. I
very
really
much.
appreciate you inviting me onto your podcast, and I'm wishing you nothing but success in the others as they move forward.
Thank you. And it's been a long time. We asked you, I think, back in October, I think it was, and it's now January, so good for you.
It's a big trip from Montreal, man.
It is. Next time we'll come to Montreal. We'll do a French version.
We could do that.
You know. So,
all right.
Thank you again. Everyone, thanks for watching. This is The Integrity Project. I'm Roy Cochiolo. You can find us on Spotify, YouTube, at The Integrity Project, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thanks very much.